Constitution of the Republic of Azerbaijan. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hikmet Hajiyev.
Is it working? I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Jane, and thank you, Guy, for these introductory remarks, and thank you for the Euronews family for supporting us on this endeavor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a privilege to provide you with introductory remarks on the opening of the fourth Shusha Global Media Forum. There could hardly be a more fitting place to discuss the future of global media. Shusha is not only a city, but a symbol. For centuries, it has been one of the places for the intellectual and cultural discussion, where literature, music, journalism, public thought flourished. Today, it's once again a place where dialogue, ideas, and international cooperation are being reviewed. This is why Shusha Global Media Forum was established. It's more just than a conference. It's a platform for the journalists, policymakers, academics, and technology leaders to examine how media is changing our societies, how we can also preserve one essential value of the media, that's the truth, that's the facts. This year's term, the mission of media in promoting peace, restoring truth, and rebuilding trust, could not be more timely. We live in an age where information travels, or disinformation travels much faster. Trust often and regularly lags behind. Artificial intelligence is reshaping journalism. Many of you may remember that 2 years ago we dedicated Shusha Media Forum on artificial intelligence. Probably it was an early stage of artificial intelligence. Sometimes we have been surprised that somebody provided a little script based on the artificial intelligence. But just 2 years, how progressed artificial intelligence? It becomes our daily life almost. Social media has expanded access to communication, but it has also accelerated misinformation, manipulation, and polarization in our societies. Digital platforms have given billions a voice, yet they have made it harder to distinguish facts from the falsehoods. In this environment, media is no longer simply reporting events. It has become a pillar of the national resilience, dialogue, and international understanding. Peace now depends not only on diplomacy, but also on responsible communication. Conflicts are fought not only on the battlefield, but also in the information space. History reminds us that wars started with the headlines of the newspapers. Let's remember the First World War. It started with the headlines of the newspapers, of the international media. But it didn't end with the headlines of the international media. And in our region, the way the Karabakh conflict was framed in the press from its earliest stage, many of you may remember in 1986 article in Humanitarian magazine of France shows how narrative can shape perceptions long before the violence escalates. Now, when revanchist forces sentiments continue to surface in parts of the Armenian society, the responsibility of the media to resist distortion, reject hatred, uphold truth becomes even greater. Now, with regard to the revanchist voices in Armenia, that's also a matter of the concern. Conflict is over. Last year we signed we initialed interstate relations normalization and a peace agreement with Armenia. Unfortunately, the revanchist forces still dominates neighboring countries' media. And for the conflict is over, but it's not over in the international media as well. Some of the international outlets are dragging us back to the square zero where the conflict has started. It's also regrettable. Unfortunately, sometimes such tendencies are also happening in the international media. While talking about the Karabakh conflict, it would be remiss if I don't acknowledge the role of the three gentlemen who are together with us. One of them is Reza Legati. Another one is a Richard, and a third one is a Mishain Agaev, among many Azerbaijani journalists. In 1992, just 20-25 kilometers away from here, Ojala genocide committed. That time, Azerbaijan was fighting for the truth. There was information blocking. There was no accessibility to the international media. But with three gentlemen, Reza, Richard, Mishain, and Mishain also represents Azerbaijani journalism as well, fighting for the truth and presenting the facts, figures, photos, and pictures to the international community. If I take this opportunity, thank to this gentleman for their hard work and also responsible work. Ladies and gentlemen, one issue receiving growing international attention is the impact of the social media on children and adolescents. Across the world, governments are reassessing how to protect young people from the harmful content, cyberbullying, addictive algorithms, and psychological risks, while preserving access to information and freedom of expression. This is not a debate about restricting technology, it's about protecting childhood and ensuring that digital innovation develops together with a digital responsibility. Every society must balance innovation, safety, parental responsibility, and individual rights. There is no universal solution, but there is a shared duty to place the well-being of a younger generation at the center of the policymaking. Let me provide you with a one quote from one of the interesting books that become recently bestseller. That's about the anxious generation. Whomever have not read it, I would strongly recommend it. As far as I heard from my Australian friends, Australian government has been inspired from the book to establish certain limits for the adolescents in the national legislation, but also inspired many other countries, including Azerbaijan. Also writes that automobiles became the popular in the early 20th century, but it took decades for many thousands of the children to die in the car accidents. But only in the 60s and 70s we designed the seat belts for our cars. And although child set in the 1980s, starting from the early 20th century up to the 70s, 80s, we're just waiting for humans to die, including the children to die in the car accidents, but we introduced seatbelts only in the 70s and 80s. In the 70s, it was very open, American friends can support this idea, vendor machines and to buy the cigarette for the adolescents. But only afterwards, in the late 80s and early 90s, late United States government introduced that adolescents should be banned from buying the cigarettes from the vendor machines. We are facing the same challenges and same difficulties. Should we wait for additional decades or maybe additional years so that introduce such a ban for the social media? Ladies and gentlemen, we have designed something we elders don't know how to do with that. That's virtual reality, social media platforms. And we also left our children completely defenseless in front of those instruments. Here, my point is not around stopping the free access and free flow of information. It's about certain regulations. And also, let me highlight it another point that we as a humanity failed our response to providing regulation at a global level with regard to the tech giants and social media platforms. We are making the same mistakes with regard to the artificial intelligence. And again, no one can stop in front of the technological development and science, but there should be ethical norms, and there should be also certain regulations. Unfortunately, we are falling behind. Another important subject is a media reform. In recent years, Azerbaijan has undertaken a comprehensive modernization of the media landscape. These reforms are designed to strengthen professional journalism, improve institutional capacity, encourage higher ethical standards, enhance media literacy, and help this sector adapt to the rapid technological change. Media reform is not about the legislation, it's about building sustainable institutions, investing in journalists, increasing resilience against the disinformation, and strengthening public trust. Azerbaijan becomes a regular subject of the international disinformation campaign. Many would potentially be surprised. recent massive information and disinformation campaign against Azerbaijan was launched by CNN. And we checked this fact, and we provided fact-checking our response, but no right of reply has been provided. No proper communication, no feedback has been provided. It means that giants and the institutions that claim for their responsible and reasonable journalism are also engaged in disinformation. That's quite regrettable. Governments, media organizations, technology companies, academia, and civil society all share responsibility for creating an information environment that's accurate, transparent, and accountable. Dear friends, Shusha reminds us that rebuilding is always possible. A city can be rebuilt, cultural heritage can be restored, communities can return. Likewise, trust can also be rebuilt through dialogue, professionalism, mutual respect. I hope that during this forum we will exchange ideas openly, develop practical recommendations for a stronger, more resilient, and more responsible global information media environment. Once again, welcome to Shusha. I wish you productive discussions. I thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Hajiyev, for your thoughtful and inspiring remarks. I think we'll agree that they've set the tone for an engaging programme of dialogue, collaboration, and forward-looking discussions on the future of global media.
So we now begin the first series of discussions that will shape today's program.